guiding student usage on generative AI.
Thank you, Brad. And so good to see so many of you here today. So many familiar faces. I hope everybody's having a great summer. Well, it's about to end, right? Actually, I think it ended this morning at 8 o'clock. So for faculty. Anyways, I want to thank you all for coming to this session. There's a lot to cover, and I want to thank Brad and Cassie and everybody else in FCT&L for inviting me here. And just kind of, I remember about 2 months ago, Brad asked me, "Hey, do you want to present on AI?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever, just any topic, Then he selected me for guiding student use. So I was like, I've been using it as faculty as a whole bunch of in different roles, but I really didn't kind of think about from student use, right? How students would use it. So this was an interesting exercise, and I spent the last 2 weeks preparing for this and reading all sorts of reports that I will talk about today. If you do have any questions, I'm a kind of blabbermouth. I tend not to see chat. Brad, just please monitor the chat and answer any questions. And if you do have any questions, just kind of interrupt me or do something of that nature. But let's get started. Just briefly about me, I've been assistant professor of instructional design for about 3 years, interim director of Instructional Design Center. I think my tenure ends probably next week, I think. And I've been instructional designer for over 10 years. And like Benjamin Franklin said that he will be a printer forever until the day he died. I consider myself an instructional designer. And I did say about faculty PD manager for 5 years. So these are the goals. This is what we're going to cover today. I think it's a lofty goal. One great thing, I don't know, is it good or bad? There's really no experts on this stuff that I'm going to be talking about. This whole symposium, I think everybody's kind of winging it, right? It's fluid discussion, and it will change in upcoming months. I mean, it may even change next week. The reports that I'm reading from March and April, they're already dated to some extent. There's very few research studies that I was able to find, some qualitative stuff, but we can expect a bunch of those coming up in upcoming months and years, obviously. So this is, if you're looking for a research field, I think this can be a good area. And also ethics and impact of generative AI is continuously changing, especially the ethics. I'm going to talk about that momentarily. So a lot of these things can age quickly. I do remember going to conferences in 2010 and attending sessions on how Facebook will change the layout of digital learning or whatever. So how that turned out. So we may be chuckling at these things that I'm going to be talking about in maybe just a couple of days or weeks or months. This is the agenda. Just kind of, I'll touch up on generative AI and current issues that are very important. I think I have my own opinion on that, so I'll give you kind of brief intro on that and what AI is and what I think it is and where it can take us. And then we'll discuss the bias, equity, ethics, and privacy. And those are incredibly important issues for your students, as well for everybody who's using this stuff. And then we're going to look at the learning. How do we learn? How students learn, not we, but how students can use AI to support learning. I mean, there's some fascinating stuff out there, and I was actually able to test a lot of things and kind of come up with examples. And then we'll talk about formative assessment. So learning and formative assessment. So, it's a kind of different twist. I'm not talking about assessment itself, but like how students will use the process of formative assessments to gain expertise and kind of to build on these larger projects or bigger ideas or to reach critical thinking skills. And then we will have a breakout group. I really want to have breakout groups. I'm going to try to time this so we actually get to have one toward the end. Just a little bit about current issues, and really, it's really my my view on generative AI and what it means, right? So I'll be kind of concise. I know that you're already familiar with some of the intricacies of generative AI and its application to teaching and learning. And you attended several sessions. This whole day was kind of packed full of that information. So I will just kind of focus on key insights that shape the understanding of AI potential and things that I will discuss in this presentation. So it's just a brief. Just a few days ago, I was catching up to AACT Tech Trends Journal, and I came across an interview that's from May, interview with Chris Dede, and he has a vast experience in instructional technology spanning decades. And you know, I always find his insights worth listening to. So they have this interview, and he kind of expressed a guarded optimism toward generative AI. I was like, fair enough. You know, he said that, you know, he's seen technologies come and go, and I've seen it as well. You know, things just kind of churn. But I think this is different. And also one of his things that he suggests that we must focus on the human part of relationships, that we have to do the best and use the AI to complement our abilities. And another report that I have is from Office of Educational Technology, and I heavily use it, and I would recommend you read this. That came out in May. That's from Department of Education. They, Chris Dede, as well as they, suggest that that artificial intelligence is more of a form, in current form, is more intelligence augmentation, right? So we're kind of extending our mental abilities, right? And I had discussions with my advisor when iPhone came out, and he was talking about devices serving as mental prosthetics, right? So tools that can enhance but not replace our cognitive abilities. And so we can't commit everything to our working memory, right? So we will use these devices, and you can't know everything, but we can use these devices to aid our thinking, right? To bolster thinking process. And with its ability to parse vast data sets and drawing inferences, generative AI exemplifies capabilities that are beyond human reach. I mean, it's just incredible. And I use it for qualitative summaries. I mean, it's amazing. And I'm sure, as all of you do know. And we already see integration of AI in our daily lives. Platform like Microsoft and Google, they have autocomplete. That kind of, you know, if you hit a tab and then complete sentences kind of knows what you're going to say. And if you use Grammarly, you know, it goes beyond grammar. I mean, it rewrites sections of your paragraphs, makes your writing clearer, more concise, makes you look better, obviously, sharpens your writing. And what are the implications of all this? I think we are on the cusp of majorly augmenting human creativity with AI. And there's few examples of people using metaphors of sculptor using AI to kind of enhance their creativity, right? So to make things better. Yeah, you can make something, but with AI, you can make it even better. And as many of you, if you have used it in your daily life, it'll make you look like a superstar when you're writing emails, doing committee charges, all sorts of stuff. So I don't think it undermines our roles yet. I think it just amplifies our abilities. And there is a concern when it comes to educational paradigms that we kind of remain on evaluating elementary tasks, the ones that AI can easily execute or complete, right? So there's understandable apprehension among educators about generative AI capacity, for instance, to craft essays, to complete short answer assignments. And then in response, there's this whole industry of plagiarism checkers, right? And then it's arms race. So, but why are we really focusing on rote memorization, multiple choice evaluations, rather than performance-based assessments and to nurture critical thinking? So let's step away from these terminal assessments or assessments that focus on lower level of Bloom's taxonomy and just kind of take it up a notch and elevate our learning, teaching, and assessment processes. So that's kind of, I'll get off my soapbox now. I'm not going to do a mic drop because that microphones are expensive. But so let's get started. So that was my opinion on that. A little bit about bias. This is one of the major issues that I came across. I came across it by accident. I was reading about it. You know, these data sets are biased, and I've been fairly boring. And in terms of using them, I stayed within my discipline. I kind of fiddle around. I didn't do many silly stuff. But when I was around February, April, I was using Midjourney, and Midjourney is a image generator, AI image generator, and it's fascinating what it can do. So in the past, I was instructional designer for College of Justice and Safety, and we always had problems with finding stock footage for marketing campaigns for juvenile justice studies. And because he involves juveniles, and like, how are you going to get stock footage? I mean, it is a sensitive subject, right? So I got on Midjourney. I was like, let me see what I can find, right? So I searched for correctional officer talking to a 13-year-old in a youth center, right? So this was around April. And it gave me, like, it's pretty good. Nothing looks fake. I did ask for youth center. I got a jail here. And this second image kind of looks like jailish. But anything wrong with this? Anybody want to point it out? Yeah. I mean, well, okay, beside fingers. Good, but racist. Melissa said good, but racist. Julie, fingers. They're all African Americans. And I was like, well, let's see, let's generate something. Yeah, exactly. So Cindy said I didn't tell the race, but automatically gave me a black child. Absolutely. So I was like, let's try something else. So I tried with other prompts, and I finally landed on this prompt. Correctional, very similar, but I just added Caucasian boy just to see. And then look at the first image, the third and fourth. I mean, just look at the head and the arms here. Light complexion up there, and arms are arms of African American kid. The last one, yeah, more short log, yeah, bad anatomy. The last one looks like a middle-aged man, maybe pasted onto an African American body. The third one is a little sketchy as well. So I kind of, what I figured out is that the data that Midjourney had at the time didn't see enough variety in these kind of prompts. So it just fed me stereotypical data that was used for training. And a lot of companies are aware of these issues. There's a lot of bias in data, and they are working on it. So just to be fair to Midjourney, I ran a same prompt just 3 days ago, and I got more varied results. Something that's not just all African Americans in various institutions. So keep that in mind. So moving to a close cousin to equity, right? And this report that I was referring to from Educational Technology gives the definition of equity. I'll have to minimize the chat, sorry. Let's see, thank you, Carl. That's a good one. These pools of data, right? These data sets that are being used, they're increasingly being used to make decisions in various environments. In education, for early intervention, for enrollment decisions, for flagging cheating. I think there was a lawsuit for University of Texas. Professor gave everybody F. They thought they were cheating, but they weren't. So there's that. So there's these poor data sets can cause the algorithms and functions that are used in these programs to make wrong kind of decisions, simply because certain populations are not represented equally as others, or they're not even represented at all. So there's a lot of, even in hiring, there's a lot of AI used when you're screening for candidates. there are a lot of errors in that area. So, just kind of keep that in mind, and how does this affect equity when you're using with these, when students are interacting with these systems. And then also, these systems are not always free. I'm using ChatGPT 4. I'm paying for it, so which is over $200 a year, and not everybody can afford that, right? So, and it is superior to version 3.5. So that is an expense. I was using, for this presentation, I was using Canmigo, which is chatbot from Khan Academy, and there's a subscription associated to it. So it is a chatbot for K through 12, and you can go in and you can interact, and it'll serve as a tutor. So again, not everybody can afford that. So those are some of the issues when it comes to equity. Ethics, I'll be short. There's a strong implication that they straight up stole the data. There's a lawsuit coming out right now, class action lawsuit. They haven't been found guilty, but I suspect, and I came across an article a couple of days ago that Google is downloading the internet and feeding their own AI systems. Again, you got to prove it, right? so next time when you fire it up, it kind of feels a little queasy, like spoils the usage, right? It's not very ethical if it is stolen data, but yeah. And then privacy, I'm not going to go through all these. This is just kind of wanted an overview of privacy, and but just keep in mind, whenever you're feeding into these systems, you become part of the data set. They'll use your data that may live forever, that can be sold, resold forever, and that can be used to make unethical decisions, right? So, and you will never know, or you may never know. Just kind of warning. But so that's the kind of the first part when I have just kind of covered these main issues. Let's look at the learning with AI. And how many of you have used intelligent tutoring systems? Like, for example, when I immigrated here, I was out of school for a couple of years, and they made me do algebra, like remedial algebra 098. And I was interacting with such system. I forgot what's the name of it. And, it adapted to my skills, and I kind of progressed. It was purely behavioristic. Here's input, here's response, feedback, until I reached certain expertise, printed out the report. Here you go, teacher, I'm good, So that's what I'm talking about. How many of you have, and you can use the chat if any of you used these systems. But long story short, they're really expensive to create. And as a programmer and an instructional designer, just imagining the programming and decision trees that you have to create that, and then you have to map out the knowledge, and then figure out how you would adapt, how to determine the knowledge levels or expertise as learner goes through it. It's fairly complex. Now, if I was a CEO in such company, and if I'm not using these AI assistants, I would be shutting the door. I would be selling the company tomorrow, honestly, because these AI assistants like ChatGPT or Canmigo or Bard or whatever, they are like quite powerful at what they do, and these intelligent tutoring systems, they tend to focus on cognitive abilities, right? But they don't really do the social and motivational aspects, where AI system like generative AI can do emotional support, and I'll get to that in a second as well. So it's like it looks at the whole learner. It's not just transactionally. You give me X, here's Y, blah blah blah, and we go, and then until you master it. So they're quite powerful at that. And Scotty said he's used Alex. So when I was playing around, so I was pretending to be a student, and I chose Charles Darwin and his journey in 1931, and I became an expert on Darwin and his journey through this process. So so I use it for all these examples that are coming up. So I went on ChatGPT. I didn't try Bing or Bard. I'll probably get the similar results. And I asked it the question, and then it was just feeding me answers. Like, and the beauty of that is it gives you an answer if the topic is general, like, and there's a bunch of caveats there, but it gives you, so you don't have to wait for the teacher. You don't have to go through 20 pages. But again, that can be good and bad, obviously. If you're stuck somewhere bad, you can just ask it and gives it to you. Here's an answer. I mean, that's a tutor, right? That's a digital tutor if I ever saw one, and quite effective. Canamigo is more complex, but it is focused for K-12. But I mean, this is just the beginning. There'll be more Canamigos for higher education. I'm sure Pearson and all those companies are getting ready to launch things like that. But they have several modes. So not just tutoring, but you can ignite your curiosity. You can chat with literary or historical figure, which is amazing. I'll get to that in a second. Or you can craft a story, and that's just some of the modes that they have available. So this is how tutoring, envision tutoring in ChatGPT would work, right? So I asked it, why did Darwin sail in 1831? And he just kind of gave me an answer. He went to observe birds and do stuff and look at the South America, chart the coastline, right? So then I was like, okay, I have another question. How long was he in Galapagos? Again, he gave me an answer, pretty straightforward. Again, what did he see in Galapagos to influence his theory of almost that artificial intelligence, of theory of evolution, right? And he gave me answers. And then I wanted to get to more specifics, and I pressed on. I didn't include it here. And he gave me, like, he observed finches, he observed these plants, he gave me a whole list of things that he finds. So assuming that this is good source, that the information is good, I can achieve learning. It is tutoring me, right? So it's can be quite powerful. Now, Canamigo, I tried to ignite my curiosity. It kind of kept me within the realm of his journey, Darwin's journey in 1931. I kind of swerve from question to question. So I started, why did he sail? What was the primary mission? Why was he mapping the South America? What tools did he use? He took me how does a sextant work? And the next question, he kind of just brought me in about that journey. So it gives you some exploration with the topic, and it's guided exploration. And that's the beauty of it. So this is an example of a prompt from Canamigo. He's not gonna, he didn't tutor me. And the next mode is the tutoring that I'm gonna cover. But he just kind of gave me information, and he suggested, hey, why don't you ask him about these things? So it just kind of fed my curiosity. I was like, okay, I didn't even have to type these things out. I just put number 3 or number 4, and it just can't continue rambling. And I stopped at some point. Obviously, I, proved its point. Now the tutoring mode is pretty cool, right? So it asks me questions. It doesn't just give me information, right? So again, why did he sail in 1831? Question about Charles Darwin. Can you recall what was the name of the ship that he sailed on, and what was the purpose of the voyage? I was like, man, let me throw him, like, I don't know, I'll just say HMS Bug. There must be a mix-up. The ship Charles Darwin was on was HMS Beagle, right? The voyage had certain specific scientific purpose. Can you recall what the purpose was? So he kind of repeating from the first question, he's drilling on what is the purpose. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure, okay, he has scientific purpose, and he offered me several choices that I could make, and he didn't give it to me straight up. So I was like, the first one, I didn't know about the coastline of America. I just thought, he did the plants and all that, but he kept drilling. I said, number 2, I was like, yes, good, but is there anything else? So I couldn't trick it. I couldn't fast forward, so it was a pretty nice conversation. And then the last example, and I'm very impressed with this one. This has got me stumped quite a bit, and I hope you share my enthusiasm. I was giggling. So I love Don Quixote. I went to a few festivals. I went to a museum. I read the book 30 some years ago, and I hope I read it again when I retire. But so I said, I would love to meet Don Quixote, right? And then he took the persona, Canamigo took the persona of Don Quixote, right? So why brings you here to see the company of such a knight as myself? So I was like, why didn't you like give up, man? What? It was a lot of effort, a lot of things, trials and tribulations that he went to, and it's. But then he answered, the surrender is by the refuge of the weak. I have chosen the path of chivalry. And then he asked me, I blacked out things because I don't want you all reading all that stuff. I mean, it was just kind of following the same narrative. Then he asked me, have you ever felt cost so deeply that you will pursue it no matter the cost? I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And let me drill down on his obsession, right? What is this? So I asked him, yeah, but you went so far. Were you obsessed? Would you need to see a therapist? So, and he was like, okay, obsessed perhaps, but is it not obsession that drives all great endeavors? I was like, that's a fair point. I mean, absolutely. You have to go, and then as a therapy, if no such thing existed in my time, yet I wonder, would it not rob me of my purpose, my quest, and my very essence? So he made a connection between therapy, like maybe he knew that he was obsessed, right? And maybe he figured if he went through that process, it would, he would maybe, go get married, and he would become, Alonso Quijano instead of remaining Don Quixote. And then he kept on drilling me about the question. I was like, man, that is pretty clever. And I just I think I gave up on it. I think I talked about him about photography, about my passions, and I was like, okay, that's good. But do you see the potential in this? And this is obviously for K through 12, but obviously maybe for 100-level students. And a lot of these projects or products will come up on the market, so students can use it. And it doesn't even have to be chat. Maybe you can do a narrative, or I don't know, maybe you can just speak into it. We can probably speak into it right now. So further simplify the input. So that's CanMigo. Some other uses, bouncing ideas. I've been using that quite a bit, asking for outlines, summaries, having dialogue for emotional support. And I'm on a few forums, and I kind of look at people use it for emotional support, but OpenAI, I think they kind of nerfed it, or they put some gates around that functionality. So it's not always it's not what it used to be. So I'm sure they're afraid of litigation, right? So do you all have any audience? This is a question for all of you. Any ideas on how else can your students use these AI assistants or for learning, for tutoring, right? Anything else? I see a response from Dr. Cannon. Runs to meet Beowulf on ChatGPT. Any ideas? And this is just straight, and like, how would you use it? Okay. Lisa said, explain quantum mechanics in plain language. And feel free to unmute yourself and just, okay, nobody. Okay, explain like I'm on fire, especially the quantum mechanics. Yep, can now. Absolutely. But and Google E said they're using to evaluate sales scripts for students in the Berman Center for Professional Studies. That's pretty cool. Absolutely. Sounds like somebody's unmuting themselves.
Yes, you should be able to unmute now.
Melissa said, beating designing in-class exercises for students to design better prompts when using AI. Yep. Okay.
I'm wondering.
Go ahead.
We if we put students in small groups, can those groups come up with ways to have the AI assistants help them in those projects that they're trying to put together for their group presentations?
So if you put them in groups and have them use AI.
Yeah, let's say they're working on a group presentation on banned and challenge books. And they're supposed to, come up with several books, and the group's going to present, what the books were, where they were banned or challenged, what kind of do you understand the reasoning behind it, how much you can enter in discussion with people on how the importance of the right to read. I would think that the assistants there could probably help them in structuring and putting together a good presentation, being able to draw upon each student's own strengths and when they're making their particular part of the presentation.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't see. Yeah, I mean that would be a good way of using that tool, definitely.
If you wanted to try a presentation, try Gamma. It is incredible. It will create presentations based on whatever prompts you give it. And then you can adapt whatever the slideshow will be. And then students can use that to present, especially if they have a background on some of that knowledge to start with.
If you don't mind, just put a name of that tool in the chat box so everybody can see. You said Gamma? I think. Gamma.app. Thank you. All right. So, and we're running out of time always. I should have cut it short. So the next part is formative assessment. So we covered learning, right? And why formative assessments? And this is kind of the step. Again, I don't want to step on soapbox. We have 15 minutes, but stepping away from teacher-centered education. And I know a lot of us have already moved on from that, and we're focusing on student-centered education. But really, what formative assessment is more of a learning process where, let's say if you have a giant project that you start on the beginning of the semester, so students can work through it. They can use AI to create these skills, to work on the assignment itself and create several deliverables that will compile a larger project, and that it can present it on the end of the class to their classmates. So, and the focus here is on feedback loops from faculty to give them constant feedback to students. And then, personalize it, adapt it, and help them whatever is needed to succeed. I avoid the term grading. It's more of a providing feedback. So grading can be punitive, right? Annotations of that are punitive. I know even the term assessment is, people have certain feelings about it, but this is more like a social constructivist approach where, students kind of work through it, and, you can ungrade it or we can grade it or whatever, but, you provide the feedback along the way. And if there are, if they're participating in the process, ideally they will have a final deliverable. One of the problems with that is that it is time demanding. So it's harder than doing terminal assessments, doing midterms and finals and all that thing. So the wrong kind of assessment, opposite of what I was just talking about, are assessments that are on low level of blooms, that stick to understand and remember, that are focusing on discrete skills and rote memorization, true, false, multiple choice, all that stuff. ChatGPT can chew it up in a second. So when I was researching Darwin, I came across 15 multiple choice questions on intro biology, and I copied one question, I pasted in ChatGPT. It gave me 3 seconds and I answered it. Then I was like, let me copy the whole page. So I copied the whole HTML and all the junk and images, and I pasted it in there. And it took 5 seconds to figure out, and then just said, answer question 1, such and such. Answer question 2, such and such. So it's really good. So if you have it in a Blackboard in a one page, good luck. So maybe using these multiple choice things or these kind of assessments for learning, maybe gamify it, have multiple attempts. Just have 20 attempts or unlimited attempts and keep the best score you want. So it's more of a learning experience versus assessment of knowledge. So. And here's another one, and I'm sure you're all familiar with. I just asked it to write a 3-paragraph essay on Charles Darwin and give me exemplary stuff. And this is kind of low level, low hanging fruit, to be honest. If chat or if generative AI have seen these papers, I mean, it won't have problem generating one. And I'm sure there's thousands of Darwin papers on Darwin were written up until now. So what are the kinds of assessments? Assessments that are what you want to have is that are in upper level of Bloom's taxonomy, apply toward the top, toward create. So, just more open-ended, more complex assessment that, that focuses on critical and divergent thinking, metacognition. I already mentioned social constructivist approach, or just generally constructivist approach, where the student is the center of this, where the learner is, obviously. And I think we do have few more minutes. We're going to do a breakout group. So these are some of the examples of assessments that you are that you're going to be seeing. These are some of the examples of assignments that you can use to help your students with the learning and with these formative assessments. Usually they have multiple checkings or multiple deliverables. I always go to project-based learning. I love that. I do understand not everybody can do it. And there's a bunch of caveats with everything I said. There's just some things you can't do. You have to do multiple choice. I know there's certain disciplines like accounting, you have to prepare students to pass these comp exams. So open-ended discussions and debates, exercises, and critique, revise, and improve the use of AI generative examples as a starting point. And that's been kind of touted since January, right? So find an errors or find factual problems with this paper. And then also I like the allow for multiple representations, and that's what Sharon Ainsworth wrote in 20 years ago. So when you're designing lessons content, you provide multiple means of representations, video, audio, multimedia, but you can also do the same thing. You can have your students express themselves in these different formats. So not necessarily a paper, but paper or video or something else. So so let me see how many of you have stick around. Brad, if you want to do, we're going to do a breakout groups for like 7-8 minutes, maybe not full 10. And ponder a question. Think about one formative assessment for your class where your students will use generative AI as an intelligence augmentation device to design and create some sort of deliverable. So this is going to be a group activity. Pick a speaker for each group, or maybe note taker, and we will do a report. I'm not going to have everybody report. Obviously, we're not going to have time, but if you can, Brad, how's it going?
Yep, we're ready.
All right,
give them time to read the slide.
All right. Yeah,
I'll start it up.
I'm going to copy this question. I'm going to send it to all the groups. So.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right. The rooms are open.
All right. Welcome, everybody. So let's do. Brad was gracious enough to extend the session for a few more minutes. So let's do a few of you, if you want to share. Let me stop my share. If you want to get on camera and just say, what did you do in your group? And we can do like 2 or 3 shares maybe. And I can stand awkwardly, quietly here, staring at you until somebody speaks.
Well, Trina and Catherine wanted me to talk about something I had alluded to earlier in the first session with Brad, how I've been using chat to help me make sure that my assignments are aligned with TILT. Because in one particular class that I was referring to, my media and society class, it's not a matter of right and wrong answers. I mean, there's a lot of things. It's like, okay, Thomas Jefferson invented this, or Thomas Edison did that. That's the easy part. But in trying to engage students in critical thinking, what I've been doing is I want them to tell me their opinions. So it's not a matter of right and wrong. I want them to critically think, how did they get from point A to point B to point C to point D? I tell them from the beginning, it's not a matter of trying to, figure out what I think or how I lean politically. I want you to be able to examine when you see a piece of media, when you hear something, whatever, when the media gives you something, understand the process by which you were able to make your decision on that. Because I say we do it for everything subconsciously, whether you're talking about what soap you're going to use or your hairspray or the car you're going to drive, it's an unconscious process. But now I am forcing them to actually consciously see how, when they interact with different media, it motivates them one way or another. And so I've been using chat to help me make sure I'm drawing out those things. And I think it makes it harder for them to cheat because I'm not, it's your opinion.
Yeah.
But show me how you got to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's wonderful, Michael. Thank you. Anybody else?
In the same vein of what Michael's doing, but a slightly different take, with my classes, I have them actually use the GTP to generate a program, and then I have them then tell me why the GTP's version is bad, like what's wrong with it. So find the errors in the machine, because I'm exercise science in my area. Let me tell you, job security is going to be a thing for a while because it cannot program its way out of a paper bag.
Thank you, Mike. Excellent example. Anybody else?
We had part of our group 8. We had Matthew from WKU and Dana from Knoll Studios. And we talked a little bit about how Matthew's using it in a group mode at WKU. I also like that idea, so I'm going to incorporate it into the Berman Center for Professional Sales here at EKU. When I work with students, I'm going to ask them to work in groups, incorporate AI, and come up with new sales scenarios, new products and services, and basically leverage AI to help them build those scenarios. So I think it'll be a good way to use it in a group setting.
Absolutely. And scenarios are always, they're difficult in instructional design. Coming up with scenarios that is always difficult. So yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Let's do one more. Anybody else? One last share. How students can use ChatGPT to promote, to achieve critical thinking. And
well, to build on what Mike suggested, one of the things that Charlotte and I were talking about, Charlotte Rich and I were in the same group. We were talking about using the ChatGPT transcripts to present your iterations as you go through a process. So instead of saying, only use ChatGPT for this element, start an assignment with the ChatGPT transcript, and then work your way forward through multiple iterations, having students show those multiple iterations, because then you can start to track the critical thinking processes. You can track the questions that are being asked, the prompts, etc. And so you can start structuring the thinking processes of engaging with the AI instead of trying to just have it operating in the background.
very cool. Thank you, William. All right.
If I could add on to that, sorry, Ned.
Go ahead.
Think beyond too, just with the text base, like with the programming and with ChatGPT 4, there's a heavy emphasis on multimodal production. So challenge your students with these different opportunities for them, where you can explore creativity that they may not have had access to before because it would take too long to do a workshop on how to use, graphic design. But now they can create videos, they can create PowerPoint slides, they can create all this really nice media with minimal training, and just something just to consider for your classrooms.
Hey, Brad, that's very interesting. I'd love to see whenever that becomes free, how to use that, working with some of my multimedia journalism students.
Oh, it's already there. Yeah, you can definitely use it for sure. There's been one particular I want to share with you. It's a podcasting tool that Adobe put out that auto cleans audio. So you can be on your cell phone in the car ride home and it will automatically clean it and make it sound like a professional Joe Rogan podcast. So it's pretty cool.
All right. Well,
I
thank you.
wish I could take credit for everything that Brad knows, but I will bet that he is one of our BEM school communication graduates who is going to be taking my job soon.
I learned from the legend.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brad. Thank you all for attending.
Yes.
These are just kind of some of the things, and we can extend this discussion. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. I'm happy to talk about all this.
Yes. Thank you, Ned.
All right. Thank you. Bye.